Welcome, everyone. Dr. Anthony Crenita, fourth here, also known as Dr. Finance. You're on the Dr. Finance Live podcast. We've got an incredible guest today, Barbara Majeski. She's a TV personality, a very successful entrepreneur, and a major Clubhouse influencer. So she's doing a lot of big stuff on Clubhouse, but off Clubhouse as well. So, folks, let's give it up for Barbara Majeski. How are you, Barbara? Welcome.
I'm great. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
It's an honor to have you here, and yeah, absolutely looking forward to talking to you as well. Now, I have a set format. Basically, we'll do a quick 30-second intro if you want to tell us about yourself in 30 seconds. Not the story, just like a quick bio. And then we're going to get into your actual story for maybe 20 minutes or so. And then I got about 20 questions, figure about 1 minute to 2 minutes each. That's the formula for today. So
all right, I like it.
All right. So you want to go in, if you can tell us a little about yourself, maybe in 30 seconds or so.
Yeah, I'm a mom of three, a stage 3 colon cancer survivor. I am an on-air television personality. I do lifestyle and entertainment on the Today Show, Inside Edition, Good Day New York. And it's a career that actually launched in my 40s after battling cancer. And I am a real estate investor. And my first incarnation is actually as a door-to-door sales girl, but I've been able to parlay those skills that I learned in the field, going door to door, straight commission, cold call sales, into pretty much everything in my life, my adult life, that I love sharing. So that's me in a nutshell.
That's incredible. Thank you, Barbara. So Barbara, we'll start with your story. Let's go way back. We'll take the way back machine. What was it? Where'd you originally grow up at? You originally from Jersey?
I'm Jersey. I was born in Livingston, New Jersey. I was an only child for 4 minutes. My twin brother surprised everyone except me, because clearly I must have known, shared a womb. And then 3 years later, my younger twin brothers were born, and also a surprise. They both sets. They thought there was just one in there. And my mom's a triplet, so it's not that far off the mark from our genetics. So, yep, that's the early years.
Wow, I didn't realize that. So you're a twin by 4 minutes. You're older by 4 minutes.
ABA for the rest of my life.
That's hysterical. By the way, I got to introduce you. Stacey Ross Cohen was my guest last week, and this is weird. It's just I guess a coincidence, but so Stacey was a twin too. She's a PR specialist, like one of the big experts in New York. So I'll introduce her.
She wrote an article on me. Yep.
Oh, she did? Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Wow. So, all right. So you're born a twin. You're born in Livingston, New Jersey. Very interesting. And then you grew up. What was like the first 10 years like?
It was, I call it grown up Schwartz. It was a little chaotic, but a lot of fun, gives you a lot of personality. You learn how to kind of deal with things. The fact that my parents had 2 sets of twins, so they had 4 kids under the age of 3, must have been a little crazy. I don't recall much of it, but I do know that eventually we started to see, my parents could see that Stephen, so my twin brother is Ben, Barbara and Ben, and then Michael and Stephen are the younger set. What they could see with Michael and Stephen is that Stephen wasn't hitting his milestones. Michael was on track and hitting his milestones, and Stephen was incredibly delayed. And it was, this was 4 decades ago, so there wasn't as many resources to really bring your kid in if there were some sort of epic delays. And long story short, Stephen ultimately got diagnosed with a condition known as Fragile X, but that wasn't uncovered until the 1990s. So we were born in the 70s. So they did understand that he was developmentally delayed and had some neurological deficits, but we actually didn't get the diagnosis until the 1990s. So it was a difficult time. There was a period of time people believed that any child that was born with autism was a result of bad parenting. You were kind of shunned. There weren't a lot of resources. There weren't a lot of people that talked about it. My parents really struggled. So it was just crazy. He had a lot of behavioral issues. And I'll share this one story when it really did solidify that he was special needs. I was 6 and the twins were 3, and I was giving them a bath. And why a 6-year-old is giving 3-year-olds a bath? This is the 70s, ladies and gentlemen. People were a little more, less panicked. And I was playing patty cake with Michael because I remember Michael just could play patty cake. And I turned to play patty cake with Steven, and he was just laying, not submerged in the water because they only would put so much water in the bathtub. But he was just laying back on the faucet and his eyes were just wide open. And I was very confused. So I called down to my parents and I was like, Steven not playing patty cake, and he's not like talking back to me. And they came upstairs, and what ended up happening was he was having seizures, and they rushed him to the hospital. His heart stopped beating. They had a tracheotomy, but it was at that point that the doctors did say that they believed he had some neurological deficits. And that's when I found out at 6 years old. So my parents came home from Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. In your backyard, I have crazy stories, but what is important to share is that my parents came home and sat down, my twin brother, Ben, and I, and they said, Steven's coming home. He survived. And, but he'll never be able to speak. And I remember at 6 years old being like, I will speak for him. I don't just bring home my brother, because I felt Michael and Steven were like my baby dolls that I got to dress up and play with. Like, I felt like they were mine. And I felt like somebody had stolen one of my baby dolls and my playmates. And I was like, just because Ben and I fought all the time, Michael and Steve were a little more malleable. And I just was like, just bring him home and I will take care of him and I will speak for him. I will take care of him. And little did I know how profound that vow ultimately was, it's kind of carried me through even to where I am today. So I'm a big advocate for speaking for those who can't speak for themselves.
Barbara, as I'm hearing your story, it's really interesting. We talk about this offline, but I didn't realize your brother had seizures. So that experience that you just said, I totally relate to. My brother had seizures too growing up, and I actually saved his life a few times.
Wow.
The same situation, like looking at him, I didn't know what was going on, and it turns out it was just the right time to get him to the hospital. But that must have been really scary for you. Did you get nervous at all? I mean, do you think like you didn't understand what was going on?
I definitely did not understand, but when my parents came upstairs and ripped him out of the bathtub and started swinging him upside down to get blood rushing to his head, they didn't know what to do. And that's what they did. So I remember seeing Steven held by the ankles, swinging, my mother screaming. And then next thing you know, they just jump into the station wagon and I don't see him and I don't see my parents for for weeks. I don't really see, my parents are in and out. I don't see Steven. I'm not getting a lot of information because I'm 6 years old. So I don't have access. No one's telling me anything. I just know that Steven's in the hospital now. Eventually, I did find out that his heart stopped beating. He spiked a fever of 104. They had to put him on an ice mat. Like, I started hearing these stories, and that was very scary. And still to this day, I'm just so grateful he survived, and he's been the greatest gift I have ever been given, because he gives me a moral compass. I believe growing up with a brother with special needs gave me a sense of humor, a sense of humility, and a sense of compassion for everyone else out there, because the wheels would just fall off. We'd be at McDonald's and Steven would have not a seizure because he stopped having seizures, but he would have one of his episodes of like just inconsolable, like anxiety and like things are flying. And we're just that family at McDonald's, like crazy pants. And my father would be like, get in the car, we're out of here. But you learned you couldn't control Steven. You could only control how you responded to him. So my dad would we would kind of just be like, all right, let's go. And he wouldn't escalate things or find humiliation in it. He had just this sense of humor about it of like, all right, everybody in the car. And you just like, I just have so many things that I extrapolate from my childhood that give rise to everything who I am and the things that I'm proud of who I am. I can pivot on a dime. I don't take things too seriously. I have a sense of humor, and I'm very compassionate. Like, I just assume everyone's got something going on. And I'm like, well, I don't know what they got going on behind the scenes. So, all of it kind of made who I am today. And I don't know, I'm doing all right today.
And Barb, we're talking about the early years, but relating to you in this capacity, I know that this really was a major part of your early years. I have a question in regards to other people, right? So this is the experience I had. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What went on in your mind, like when you saw the reactions, no matter where you went, I'm sure other people would always have a different view of your brother and your family based on what they saw, depending on what your brother was doing, right? Like what was your reaction to other people who were unaware of
Actually,
special folks like your
yeah,
brother?
I think people immediately understood that Stephen had neurological issues. They call it neurological impairment is they keep changing the words. And I'm like, what's he seeing? Like, I don't want to say anything offensive. But you could quickly, and maybe that's not even PC anymore, but you could see he was neurologically impaired. So I don't think people generally did not judge harshly. I think they felt sorry for us, or I created blinders where I didn't give a shit. I think that I have learned to have through, trials and tribulations, it's a work in progress, to not really care what other people are thinking. Like, I have a battle to wage right now. I can't worry about your judgment on me. But I do have something that I want to share that I think is great. Like this,
Go ahead.
my brother, so I got very sick, in 2015 and battled stage 3 cancer. So I went through chemo in 2016, and my twin brother flies up from Charlotte, and I'm thinking like, I'm having a hard time with chemo. And I thought this was really funny. And my twin brother did not find this funny at all, but I found it hysterical. And I've always been like Stephen's voice. I've been his advocate. I've just jumped in, like I said, when I was 6, and I've just always been that person. And I didn't know if I was going to survive because chemo was kicking my ass. And I said to Ben, I said, if you don't take care of, if anything happens to me and you don't take care of Stephen the way that I was going to take care of Stephen, I will haunt you. I will haunt you. And I'm laughing. I'm like, oh, that's going to be so fun to haunt my twin brother, because we've always had this like crazy, like we're just always kind of like difficult, but we love each other and very like kind of combative. I thought it was hysterical. My brother looked at me, he's like, you are a sadist. And you're like, but the thought of me haunting my twin brother gives me the giggles. I'm like, I'll have something to do in the afterlife. But yeah, he didn't find me very funny. But I meant it. And I think that's what scared him. I think he was like, she really will haunt me. And I'm like, oh my God, the things I would do. Spooky, Anywho, I survived cancer, so I can't haunt him in the afterlife. But I do want it out there that if anything does happen to me, I do expect him to advocate, take care of him, financially back him the way that I would. So,
Stephen, it's on the record, Stephen. If you're not watching this podcast, it's a shame. I want to send
kind
it to you.
why I'm saying it, because if anything, I get hit by a bus tomorrow, I'm like, hey Ben, remember my promise.
So, all right. So thank you, Barbara. I appreciate that story. Any funny stories growing up having a brother like your brother?
I can't really think of anything in particular, and I'm sure I'll think of it after we have this conversation. It just was a matter of like, you just couldn't really, he would never take pictures. Like he just was very like difficult, like had his own way of doing this. And we could never take a family photo. So in everyone's like, oh, can I see a picture of your family? And there's we're a family of 6. So there's 5 of us front facing, like, and there's Stephen who wouldn't turn around. He would turn the other way. And it was like super frustrating. So we just don't have the Schwartz family photos, but that's the funny part of it. It's like part of growing up Schwartz is that we just could never, there were no family photos. So I think now I love those pictures, because they do speak to the disjointedness of my childhood, but that we loved each other and there were so many blessings and we were perfect in our imperfections.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you, Barbara. So Barbara, were you always an entrepreneur growing up, or did you have that entrepreneurial spirit in you, or did that come later on in life?
I was always driven to make money. I wanted to make money. We had no money growing up, and the cars would break, we couldn't fix them. My parents had to ride their bikes. We just had where they lost their homes, their cars at one point. We
Oh,
had
you
to
came from nothing, Barbara. I didn't
Oh
realize
yeah.
that.
I'm
Oh,
like, oh yeah, I'm self-made. I am 100%, feet on the street, pick yourself up by your bootstraps. And I hated it, but we lived in a very affluent community. I grew up in Princeton because right outside of Princeton, West Windsor, Plainsboro. And my parents moved us there because the education was so good. So we lived in like a 1-bedroom apartment at one point. I'm serious. My dad, the car broke down. They couldn't fix it. My dad rode his bike to the train station of Princeton
wait,
Junction.
1 bedroom with 4 kids?
Oh yeah, and a dog at one point. Quail Ridge Apartments. We got kicked out of there too. We lived at 222 Quail Ridge Apartments, all of us, and a dog. Because sometimes things just didn't. It just happened. I remember going to the supermarket at times and leaving the food behind because our checks bounced. There was no money. And this is before they took credit cards at supermarkets. And I just hated all of it. But I had the blessing of growing up in an affluent community where my friends did have money. And I was like, I want that. And I want that. And I want that. And I want choices. And I want a lifestyle. And I do not want this. I want that. So what do I need to do? And the cool thing was my dad did something very cool when we lived in California because we all had to get separate. We lived with my uncle out in California in another studio apartment. Yeah, all of us, all dudes and me. That gives me don't get me wrong, it ends up giving me an edge out here in the world. Like, men do not intimidate me ever. Actually, I probably intimidate men, but I don't care. Neither here nor there. But the conversation I had with my dad. So my dad would take us to a Ferrari dealership because my dad loved the Testarossas. Mind you, we didn't even have a car at the time. We had a painter's van and there were no seats. So there's just the 2 seats and only my brother, Steven, could sit in the passenger seat. And then the 3 of us yahoos are in the back, like a bunch of lunatics surfing around, sitting on the wheel bed. Those were our seats. Like, just hold on and whatever. And my dad would take us to a Ferrari dealership and he'd be like, what car do you want? And I would be like, I didn't care about cars. I still to this day do not care about cars. Whatever. And I got home that day and I just started crying in the parking lot of my uncle's apartment complex. And I was like, why do you take us to see these expensive sports cars? We don't even have a car. We live with your brother. We have no money. And I'm pretty effing miserable. And my dad said, I said, we'll never be able to afford that. And he's like, that's not true. He's like, we just have to find out. He's like, somebody has to buy these cars. Somebody lives in those homes in La Jolla. Somebody buys these cars. These people have that lifestyle. We just have to find out what they did and do what they did. It was never like, oh, they're just lucky they inherited it. It's like, let's find out what these people do and do what they did and get what they have. And that information really did like embed in my subconscious mind of like, all right, I just have to do what they did and get what they have. So I never thought anything was out of reach. I always believed that if I was willing to do the work, I could have the things. If I did do the things to get the things. And so when I got out into the workforce and people were offering me salaries, I was like, well, how do I make more money? Like, oh, you get a raise. And I was like, what? So I can only make this much this year? Oh, that's it? Like, can I make more? And what I found is the only way to make money was to, number 1, be in sales, and number 2, scale sales teams. So so I was just driven to be insanely wealthy. And I'm always curious about the next level of financial independence, prosperity, wealth. So I don't want to work for anyone. No, I can't work for anyone. I'm a terrible employee. Terrible.
That's funny. So you moved out to California. How old were you when you did that with your family?
Yeah, it was just for like a year and a half. 8th grade. I spent 8th grade in Spring Valley, California, which actually, funny thing is, I was on the Nick Cannon show. And I Googled him and he went to the high school. So he went to Monte Vista High School, and that is in Spring Valley, California. I'm like, I lived across the street from your high school. I was supposed to go to Monte Vista High School in 9th grade, but I decided to move back to New Jersey and live with my mother. So my parents had to separate because of the chaos. Growing Up Schwartz, there's a book in there. I don't know. So yeah, I lived there for a hot minute. It was miserable. And I'm not a California, I'm a Jersey girl. I want a bagel and a schmear. I want pizza that tastes like pizza. I don't want to eat green smoothies and kale. Sorry.
That's funny. Barbara, so your dad, did he want to move him back with you to Jersey, or you just you decided to go there?
Eventually, I moved back with my, but we were all in some iteration of like the four of us, some were back in New Jersey, but ultimately all four kids ended up back in New Jersey. And that was my freshman year of high school. I don't know what year that is. I graduated in 91. I should do the math. Maybe it was 88 or something, 87, 88. But yeah, we all ended up in Jersey. My parents still, they're together living with Steven, and I live close by.
Wow. And now you're in Stone Harbor. How long you been here for?
I have a home in Stone Harbor. I have a home in Princeton. I have a home in Tribeca. And I do several different invest in a lot of real estate endeavors. And I'm obsessed with real estate. I mean, honestly. So, I've been in Stone Harbor, Avalon for 19 years. And Princeton, I guess 18 years. So yeah. And Tribeca for the last couple of years, but I'm going to be buying more. I want to build my real estate portfolio, from where it is. I want to 10x it, over the next, decade. So it's where my energy is flowing right now.
I heard the interview you had with Grant Cardone, and he said on stage that he don't want to come to Philly, but you sound like you had a better edge in that conversation of convincing him to at least stop by and visit New Jersey, which he doesn't realize is so close to Philly, or maybe he does, I don't know. But what's your thoughts? Can we get him to Philly or Jersey? What do you think?
I'd love to spend, so I've spent time with him and Elena, and I would love to get them to the Jersey Shore, take them, the Jersey Shore is like stuck in the 1970s. You ride your bikes everywhere. Everybody you leave your, it's just old school. Everybody's in each other's business, in each other's homes, in each other's, like, it's so community and it's 1970s. My daughter rides her bicycle barefoot, but literally by July 4th, there's no more flip-flops. Nobody can find them. It's the lifestyle. It's safe. A lot more independence for these kids at a younger age, to foster really great confidence. And I feel like every kid needs a little Stone Harbor in their life. Honestly, that's why I want to get them down there. I'm like, it's great, but you can leave your Gucci slides on the other side of the bridge. Nobody cares, and nobody cares if your flip-flops match at this point. So I like the old school. I get to bring my kids to another decade, another time. We're frozen in time down there. That's all I can say. Frozen in time.
Is that why you like it so much? Because of that, I know about Jersey Shore very well, and I agree with you. Do you think that that's one of your top reasons, because of the time element? It's kind of like stepping back and more
100%.
peaceful time.
My kids at a much younger age had access to independence and freedom because we're a barrier island. So you have to cross a bridge to get on there. So your kids and everybody, it's just a small town. So even I remember my daughter was like maybe 1, and which makes Max 9. And we were sitting on the beach, and Max looks over. He's like, "Mom, I've got basketball." So there are basketball leagues down there. And I was like, "Oh, I'm like, I just got onto the beach and I had forgotten with a 1-year-old." And I was like, "Oh my God." I'm like, "Get on your bike, go back home, change. I'll meet you at basketball." And no, Max was 7. It's okay. So they're 6 years apart. So he's like 7 or 8. He's young. It's probably 7 going on 8. And I was like, I'll meet you there. And it's probably 10 blocks from the house. And there's this and I just remember being like, have I lost my marbles? Like, I'm letting this 7-year-old just get himself to basketball. And I felt like he was like, you know what? He knows how to cross streets. The bike lane is huge. There's no highway through Stone Harbor. And I got my act together and eventually made my way to his basketball game. And there he was out on the court, and he was 7. He was 7. If I'm doing the math correctly, he was 7 years old. Maybe 8 if I'm trying to gauge, but definitely young. And I was like, all right. And I remember thinking like how lucky we were because everywhere else we have to get in the car seats and the driving and there's no driving down there. Like driving is so annoying. You have to park. I do not drive down there. I'm like, I will ride my bike. And so does there. I ride my bike in sundresses every Friday, Saturday night.
Even in the winter?
No. I was down there actually over Christmas. It was really, really nice, but I was not in a sundress. But we were riding bikes.
So Barbara, I want to get to your success story now. So, after high school, did you want to go into college, do any of that stuff?
Yeah. So I put myself through college. I waited tables, taught aerobics, worked at the Bally's Total Fitness,
Wow.
worked at the student union. I ended up getting a degree in health education. Took me 5 years to graduate. I don't know. I don't know that I'm a big, I'm not, I felt like I couldn't quit college because I couldn't, the narrative in the 90s, go to college, get a good job, go to college, get it. So like, if you didn't have that link in the chain, you were doomed. So I was so bought into that. I no longer subscribe to that. And I know some people aren't going to agree. My son's in college right now, but with the understanding of like, if this is not the path and you are not thriving here, you do not have to do this. You do have to find your way. You're not living off the fat of this land. Oh, no. This is my money and I'm taking it with me. No. You got to make your own way. But I'm very much of like, pick your own adventure because I don't believe from what I can see, that the professors and the institutions are able to keep pace with the changing in technology and the evolution and the pace to which our industries are evolving. If you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer or have some sort of like, if you know your trade, go there. But yeah, so I sucked at school. I was terrible. I was horrible. I was like the worst. But turns out if there's money involved and I can make it, I will, and I'll learn much better when there's like a real, like I don't know. That's just me. I'm like motivated by money or I get curious. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that people make it like, oh, some people don't want to talk money and they're like, I'm like, I want to make money. I don't want to just get paid. I want to make it rain. And, it's also in line with like, I knew I had a brother with special needs. I knew I had to take care of him. And I knew that in order to take care of him, I would, hold on, I've got, of course, some weird phone call coming. These people keep terrorizing me. I knew that in order to take care of him the way he would need to be taken care of and not be institutionalized. That was my fear. If I didn't make money, he would be institutionalized. So I was driven at a whole nother level of like, no. You remember when Geraldo Rivera did that expose on that institution in Long Island?
Mm-hmm.
Remember that? I saw one picture. It still haunts me. I'm like, my brother's not gonna be institutionalized. I'll make money. So that's what I did.
It's funny. I think we have some of the same drivers like that. That's similar for me too. It's a scary thought of what can happen because right. Like, would you agree that he's probably one of your top inspirations for becoming who you are?
I have no quit. I have no backdoor. I have nothing. I'm like, figure it out, make it work, figure it out. I have that in the back of my mind. You don't get to quit. Quitting's a luxury for people. Oh, I don't like this job. I'll just quit. That's a luxury. That's a privilege. I don't have
now, Barbara, you survived cancer, which is a story in itself, but would you say that even beyond the cancer, your brother would probably be the top of the list for your driving inspiration? I mean, even that got you through the cancer, possibly. I don't know.
Yeah, I wanted to quit everything I ever did. I wanted to quit going to college. I wanted to quit. Like I started doing door-to-door sales. Wanted to quit that every 30 seconds. I scaled sales teams. That was, and it was all like new and we didn't know what we were doing. I wanted to quit. I wanted to quit everything that I was ultimately proud of. But again, Stephen gives you that, you don't have the luxury of quitting. You have to take care of him. And if you don't, he'll be institutionalized. Why do I sound like this? And Um,
All right.
yeah,
So,
so
okay,
go ahead.
no, all you.
Yeah, Stephen gave rise to the greatest gift that anybody can be given, and that's the gift of purpose. And I really found that clarity when I was battling cancer, of seeing like it wasn't just me taking care of Stephen, it was Stephen taking care of me. And when I saw that for what it was, I can distinctly remember being like, if I get to the other side of this, I will continue to put myself out there so that I can use my voice to advocate for those who can't speak for themselves. To continue to just, put myself in, on larger stages. Cause I think that people do get like lost in the sauce, and they feel like their traumas and their tragedies, or their trials or their tragedies. And I try to help people understand that could be what you're gifted to help and serve others, because the only emancipation from suffering is to help others. That's it. Use your story, how you got through it, get through it, and then go help other people that are going through it too. So yeah, no, Stephen's been such a beacon of light. He's got a great sense of humor. Sometimes he's a pain in the neck, but I love him. So am I. I'm a pain in the ass. I'm a piece of work.
Barbara. All right. So Barbara, what you do after college? How did you start building your empire, so to speak?
Yeah, so I started going on job interviews, like I said, and I didn't want to get paid. I wanted to make money. And I ended up on a a job interview, I guess. So it was an opportunity interview, because they were building this concept of, instead of telemarketing, they wanted us to go business to business and talk to small business owners about the deregulation of the phone industry. And AT&T was struggling to get to the small business owner because they don't answer the phones. They don't take telemarketing calls. They're not reading their junk mail. They're not watching billboards. They're working 14 hours a day to run their restaurant. So they asked us to go business to business. So it was this pilot campaign in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, what glued me to this concept was when I was interviewed, they were like, through the interview process, they're like, we really are looking that if we're really looking for people that can go business to business, learn the fundamentals of sales, but help us scale. But we can't scale until we prove to AT&T that we're a viable source for new customer acquisitions. And I was like, oh, okay. So I started going business to business, and I had that like gut instinct. I was like, this is pretty good. I mean, obviously, like it was a law of averages and no met next and work on straight commission, and being part of a startup was fuzzy. But the idea that, wait a second, if we prove to AT&T that this is good, they'll want us to expand. They'll outsource more territory for us. And if they have to expand, they need somebody to do the expansion that has done the field. And they need somebody to lead sales teams. And if I can get a cut out of everybody that I hire, then I want in. And so it was very cut and dry, but I made $12,000 my first year in the field there. So for all those, oh, she's so lucky. I'm like, really? Would you work for $12,000? And had to pay my own gas expenses, and I had to split commissions when I trained people.
Yeah, but gas was like $1 back then.
It was like free, not comparatively. But I drove my grandmother's old Pontiac Grand Prix, and that thing was a gas hound, like, whoa. And we would have to drive out to like territories that were far away. But I saw, and I think I had a really strong instinct. I was like, I think this could be good. And we ended up expanding, opening up more territories. Gas and electric started deregulating. We started doing events on college camp. I mean, it went from this vision to this wild, wild west, gross expansion. I was opening up offices. I was hiring salespeople. I was working 6 days a week, 12, 14 hours a day. I had people going door to door. I had people going business to business. I had people on campaigns, on campuses, doing Target in-store. Like all of a sudden I was like, everybody wanted to outsource to salespeople. Like, we don't want to hire our own salespeople. We want you to we want your salespeople to sell our crap. And it was like bonkers. And that's really where I ended up building my nest egg. That has helped me build my real estate empire that I continue to build. And it's also built my, I don't know, my grit, my resilience. You know, you go door to door and people tell you to take a long walk off a short pier, but you can't do that because you have to go to the next door because you got to put food on the table. So you learn to just deal with adversity very quickly. Like no means next. Okay, great. Thank you. I'll take that long walk off that short pier and go, you know, fly my kite into, you know, a hurricane storm or whatever. But
So
it all
you,
makes
you, you were in sales most of your 20s and 30s, right? Is that right?
only in my 20s.
Only 20s.
I retired by the time I was 30.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, I had done pretty well. And I started having kids and I was like, you know what, I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom. And I'm just that kind of person that's like, I don't really buy into narratives. I don't buy into, you know, social tropes. Oh my God, she has a gap in her resume. Oh, gap in her resume. I was a stay-at-home mom to 3 kids.
Yeah.
I am like army trained. I'm military. I'm a Marine. I can work on lack of sleep. I can, you know, shift on a dime. I can motivate and inspire anyone from 0 to 19. I'm like, I am not, there is no gap in my resume. I'm a motivator. I'm a coach. I'm a therapist. I know how to put together cribs and install don't you say I've got a gap in my resume. And I share that because any of your listeners or people get fearful about making shifts and pivoting and taking risks because of these social tropes that are such bullshit. They're all bullshit. You believe what you want to believe. And I was like, I'll just go back and work. So anyway, I was a stay-at-home mom for a decade. I did do I launched philanthropy initiatives. I did get a humanitarian award for my work with Operation Smile, continuing to advocate for special needs, you know, children and adults. So I was really living out my dream. And then in my 40s, I was like, I want to go on TV.
Well, hold on. Before we get to the 40s, Barbara. So you were stay-at-home mom for 10 years. Were you also going back to building your empire? Were you in the background, I'm sure, probably build an empire real estate wise, because that doesn't take much work to do once you
So
have the funds, right?
you know, I was, of course, building my empire. I still did like courses and stuff like that. I remember doing like a Stephen Covey, you know, like I was like, I want to manage my time better. I did fun stuff like that. I, you know, still had a piece in the company so I was really, you know, I had established myself. So I had a piece of that sales company. I may have retired, but I still had a little piece of the pie, which I still have today. So I'm like still in that a little in my own way, financially invested, not, I don't know, there's no more sweat equity that I have to put forth. So yeah, I learned a lot about real estate, I think in my 30s. And I don't think I learned a lot about real estate. We did a few transactions. We were fortunate. We actually did a few really good transactions before the crash of 2008. Yeah, so we saw that was a great learning experience, but we got out right before, like the year before.
Wow.
I guess, you know, I don't know. Anyway, so yes, so that was what I was doing. And then I really have gotten into real estate in the last I'd say the last decade, more of like when I decided my marriage ended, I was like, you know what? I can make my own decisions now. You have to run this. I mean, listen, I'm not going to promote divorce. It's the worst thing I've ever been through. But then the good side is like, you don't have to run anything by anybody else. You just get to, what do you think of this idea, Barb? I think it's great. You know, you have a meeting with the board of directors, me, myself, and I are just like,
Hey, Napoleon Hill did it, and he had imaginary people on his board of directors.
yeah, I'm here for it. I'm like, you know, maybe this is a good thing. I don't know. Anyway, that's my story. That's my 30s.
So, and then there's a major part of your story too. So you had also survived cancer. If you want to talk about that and kind of bring us
you know,
forward.
it's good to talk about because I got diagnosed at 42, stage 3 colon cancer. I am so lucky I caught it. The age now has been lowered. So screening used to be at 50. It's now been lowered to 45. But if you have colon cancer in your immediate family, you need to go in 10 years before that person got diagnosed. So it could be 40, it could be 30. And I think not enough attention has gone to colon cancer for women, because, you know, a lot of attention to breast cancer, ovarian cancer, any other cancer. But the crazy part was when I was diagnosed, I couldn't find anybody to talk to that was a woman. I couldn't find anybody like me. Nope. I don't know why. And not, so I've made myself very public in that space to help others dodge the bullet. The cancer, the colon cancer is the most treatable, beatable cancer if it's caught early. And I'm now dating a wonderful man that I love dearly, but unfortunately we met at a colon cancer event, and he was there to honor his late wife who passed from colon cancer. You know, and you know, it's devastating. She left behind 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. Like that's what I have, 2 boys and a girl. So yeah, I was really lucky, and part of me is a little spooked by my survivorship because I'm a pretty healthy person. I ran the New York City Marathon twice. I do triathlons. I just work out keep myself in my size clothing that I like. But I am very active. But I'm not really one to go to doctors because I consider myself hardy and healthy. I have no idea. My guardian angels were looking out for me because it spooks me. I'm like, how did I even, it's so not like me. But I was supposed to survive and use my story to serve others. So who's ever listening, go get your screening. It's like it's a cleanse. You lose a few pounds, you get a little skinny. It's okay. So yeah, I was diagnosed on the heels of my marriage falling apart at 42 years old, and it was pretty advanced and it was pretty scary. And chemo sucks. So if you think a colonoscopy sucks, I'll tell you a little about what chemo looks like. And 6 months of it,
Wow.
6 months of chemo. I
6
remember
months?
6 months. I remember them telling me like, oh, it's stage 3 and blah, 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 blah. You have to have chemo. And I'm doing the math. I'm like, I can't do that because I have a ski trip and I have a birthday and I have, you know, my kids are, you know, graduating like 8th grade or something. Like I had, or wait, there was 6th and 4th grade. So I don't know what they were doing, but it doesn't matter. I had things to do. I was very busy living my life, and chemo was not on my to-do list. And chemo and cancer doesn't give a shit about your to-do list and your goals and your objectives. So yeah, chemo sucks. So you think like people are like, oh my God, I'm so scared of a colonoscopy. I ain't got space for that one. Oh no. Oh no, you do not. Call Cologuard or whatever. But anyway, that's my story. Did a little cancer, a little chemo, had a little foot of my large intestine removed. Then they put it together like and with some duct tape. How do they do that? They just take a foot of your large intestine, throw it in the garbage, and then they glue.
Which side, the left or the right? I don't know if
don't-
that matters.
I don't even remember. It was not in a good spot. I know that because they,
Okay.
you know, you think you're having a bad day. I go in to get so 2 days before you go in, I don't know why it's 2 days, but 2 days you do a day of like screening and blood tests and scans and all this. And you go from floor to floor to floor at Sloan Kettering. And then the last person you meet with is this nurse. And she's like, where's your belt line on your stomach? And I'm like, I guess it's like right here is where I wear a belt. And then she takes a big Sharpie. She draws this giant circle. And I'm like, what is that? And why are you doing that? And she's like, well, if where your tumor is not a good, you know, is a precarious place. And if they have to, you will wake up with a shit bag.
Oh,
I'm like, excuse me, did you just say, and she didn't say shit bag. For the podcast, it's a shit bag. I don't even, ostomy. I don't know. I don't know what it's called. In my mind, all I heard was shit bag. I'm like, so my marriage just ended. I have cancer, and now I could have a shit bag attached to me. What the fuck? You know, like, holy shit. And I was like, I just got marked up for a potential
excuse the
shit.
pun.
Yeah. So excuse me for those who are scared of a colonoscopy, and my lack of like compassion for your fears. I'm like, I don't really, you want me to come over there with my Sharpie and mark up your stomach? It's like, so anyway, that's my cancer story. I did
Wow.
survive, and I did not wake up with a poop bag. Amen.
Oh, that's great. That's great news. So Barbara, so this was about a decade ago, I guess, right? Or
No. I am 7 years cancer free.
Wow. So, what happened with so how did this all work? You said in your early 40s, you really took a career change. The cancer survival story was part of it, but you
Yeah.
shifted. And most of people who know you today, they know you from TV. You're a huge TV personality. I believe you're on. Let me see if that's right. Good Day Today, Today's Show, New York Live. I know I see you with those.
Fox and Friends,
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
all
Yeah,
of
if you
them.
want to tell us that story.
Yeah, in the middle of my cancer, my chemo, I'm bumping up around 8 or 9 the eighth or ninth infusion, and I am not doing well. Turns out cancer was easy. Chemo is not for me. And it wasn't a stage 4, so I hadn't like gone into other organs. So I wasn't in like crazy distress. But the chemo, woo! And I was like, oh my God. And I had this moment where I was like, this is where I don't think I'm gonna make it. I think this is where my story ends. Can you imagine, like at 42, I'm like, every chapter that has been written about my story, my life, those are all the chapters I get to write. That was it. And I reflected on all the things I was really proud of, but also took inventory of like all the things that I was like, I never got to do, or I just never pursued. I just wanted to do it, but I made a bunch of excuses. And I swore that if I got another shot, I would never stop myself from being in like aggressive pursuit of living my dreams and trying things. I would rather fail in the pursuit than fail to pursue. And I was like, oh my God. And that's when TV kind of hit me. And it's this intersection of knowing that I wanted to use my voice to speak for the most vulnerable members of society. And I knew that I had more to do and I needed a bigger stage. So that intersected with my dream of always being on TV. I was like, something, if I could really raise my profile and put myself out there, then I could do more and help more people in the process. So it's this intersection of the vow that I made to use my voice to speak for those who can't speak for themselves, and my dream of being in television finally like intersected in a space that allowed me to swipe left on the voices of self-doubt and fear, or give a shit about what other people thought about me. But those two things needed to really collide. And I got to the other side of cancer. I was like, I'm going for TV. Mind you, I'm a door-to-door sales girl. I have a degree in health education. I suck at school. And I've never been in front of the camera. And I was like, all right, how do you be on TV? Well, how do you learn anything? You gotta get a coach. You gotta get a trainer. You gotta go back to school. So I hired a media trainer, and the rest is kind of serendipity and history. And like, there's so many crazy stories, but my very first booking was the Today Show. As soon as I got there, I was like, I belong here. I have been here 1,000 times in my head. In my head, I saw myself on the Today Show. I saw myself shaking hands with fans. I saw myself laughing with the co-hosts. I saw myself being fun and funny and talking shit, so when I got there, I was like, oh, because people were like, what was it like? I was like, I walked in like I owned the place. I was like, oh, I belong here. Because you're there in your mind long before you were there physically. If you can get yourself there visually, it's just a matter of starting to move that process forward.
Yeah, because the Today Show is one of the top most popular shows in the world.
Yeah, go
really,
big,
on television.
go big, just go big. I was like, all right.
And how many times have you been on there so far?
Oh God, I don't know. Countless. I've been on countless TV shows. I mean, I don't even know. I have to like Google myself sometimes I'm like, oh, I think I did a segment on that, and I'll just put my name in and Google myself, and that's how I find my stuff. I Google Barbara Majeski.
That's incredible. Well, thank you, Barbara. And right now, catching us up to full forward, you've been on Clubhouse like myself for about 2 years now, and really have experienced the spectrum of education that happens on there, including the negative education. So, how did you get on Clubhouse?
So, I always feel like the universe conspires in your favor. Like, it was COVID and I was working from home, and I was like, all right, let me get on here. How long have I been? So did we get on Clubhouse in 2020? No,
It
2021.
depends. Yeah, like I was early 2021. You might have been one of the first pioneers. They were late 20.
It was not, because there was like people that were on there long before
Most of
me.
them were techs. Yeah, people. If you see anybody from 2020, they were like tech gurus. That they knew the owners and stuff.
When I started, but immediately I kind of just found my way. I just would go on stages and start talking about like, hi, it's Barbara in the red dress, because my icon had me in a red dress. And I was like, I want you to find me on the stage and follow me. So it ended up being like this branding genius thing. Like, but hey, it's Barbara in the red dress. Anyway, I did.
Is that where that came from? Because there was a lot of people that started doing that.
Yeah. It just became like my moniker.
Oh wow.
Because I'm crafty. I was like, I do not want you to not know who I am, because I'm going to drop some genius on you. And I've done well, but I got to be honest, I'm moving over to Twitter Spaces.
Yeah, I might
Your
be too.
Clubhouse is not going to be able to, is going to be around, but it doesn't have the reach that Twitter does. And so I'm over on Twitter Spaces, just kind of finding a new, new audience. But it's again, a drop in audio. You got to bring your stuff there.
Barbara, I believe I followed you on
Be careful.
Twitter. I have a really big Twitter base.
Yeah,
So,
you got to get off Clubhouse.
Yeah, I think we can do some really big stuff on there. I have a pretty substantial size over there. So
Well, I just started. My account opened in November. I had to start all over. They closed my account. They permanently suspended my account, won't open it.
How come?
Actually, yeah.
Was hacked?
They're bringing people back. I think what was wrong with my account, because I'm like, why would you bring everyone back but me? Because I'm not that jazzy. My account was hijacked for probably 3 or 4 months. So I have to assume during that time, somebody did something that destroyed that account. I don't know. And then I've had that account actually compromised more than once. Actually, yeah, I don't know. That's my assumption, but you can't talk to anyone. You can't pick up the phone. I'm like, why would you shut me down? Really? You can have terrorists on there and Hunter Biden and like some real assholes, some real fucking losers, and you're going to cancel me. Okay. All right. Elon Musk, like you can do better. So I will be putting a lot of energy into, I don't know, fixing that.
Now,
But
I don't have a
I'm on another
political stage on Clubhouse, right? We don't talk politics, all that stuff.
like every night. I'm gonna every night. But I do like it.
That's awesome. Thank you, Barbara. All right, so Barbara, we're going to move full forward with our questions now. So I want to start out with, these are questions that I've asked pretty much, well, actually not the Temple questions. So these questions are unique to you, but then I have Temple questions, which I asked to everyone. But let's start out with stuff unique to you. So I want to talk about your books first. Do you have any books out there? Have you published any books?
Not yet, but it's coming soon. We've got the Bearing It All book, which is basically just a memoir, and the concept it's bearing it all. Everyone has chapters they don't read out loud. Here are all of mine. So that's one. I'm also doing a book on the pillars of transformation, how to go from information to transformation by taking action. So I'm looking forward to doing that. That's in the works. And you just never know what else I'm going to do. And I'm putting together this More Life Collective, which is a collective of resets, retreats, and challenges to help people live their best life.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So when can we expect on record? Because once you say it, you have to do it. When can we expect this book to come out?
The book will be out by the summer 2020.
Oh, cool.
Mm-hmm. And it'll be great because it's aligned with a couple of the challenges I run that are gangbusters. They are like, people got into that 75 hard and they have like a 10-15% completion rate. I literally have over 80% completion rate, not because it's easy, but because it's manageable and it's challenging, but it's also live as opposed to self-directed. So it's very cool. I love. I'm obsessed.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm actually, so what I've been doing, a lot of my guests on Clubhouse, I created this Amazon page. I'll share it with you. that I add their books to the guest section. So I'll put your book in there, and when they come every week, they can check it out, and you'll be part of that collection of all the speakers. So it'll
Love
be a
it.
continuous thing for them.
Love it.
All right, thank you, Barbara. And next question. One thing that you have also started recently is your podcast, and I watched an episode recently with Grant. So if you want to tell us a little about that and what your plans of the podcast is in the future.
Yeah, it's also called Bearing It All. It's the grit behind the glamour. I think we're tired of highlight reels and we want the real story of how people got to where they are and what they needed to do and what it's all about getting the grit, like the grit. That's it. Just how'd you get there? What's your story? Because remember my dad and the Ferrari story is you just have to do what other people did to get what they have. And be willing, are you willing to do what they did? Are you willing to do the work? So I try to find out what they did to get where they're at and share that.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Barbara. How many guests did you have on here so far?
I have no
Or how many
idea.
episodes? I'm sorry.
No idea. No clue. 40, 50?
You've been doing it for what, about a year or two?
No, I started it before the pandemic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I retired it for a little bit and then I resurrected it, and yeah, we're going up on season 3 this year.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's different seasons, like not by year.
You know, it's funny, this podcast, when I put it in the podcast directory, they always ask me season. This is like one long season. I just keep adding one because it's just so much easier. This is still season 1.
Okay, I like it. I like it.
I can't keep track. All right, thank you, Barbara. So the question of the day is, who do you like better, Eagles or Giants? You know, being from Jersey and stuff. I mean, Jersey could swing either way. They could be South Jersey or North Jersey, and
Like
Central Jersey. It really is a big, toss in the
Oh,
thing.
and people are Jets, Giants, or Eagles. Everyone's all over the place. I am Giants. When I was married, I was Eagles because he was from South Philly. But then we got divorced and I will never wear green again.
Oh,
Go Giants.
well, you're still technically wearing. Giants got a little green in my thing somewhere. No.
Me on the turf.
So, all right. So we got Eagles and Giants, but listen, on the clubhouse stage, we got New England Patriots there. A lot of Boston folks. Tyrone Poole. So he's a 2-time Super Bowl champion. But listen, we represent all the East Coast.
Go Giants. Well, I'm actually Bills this weekend. My boyfriend is from Buffalo, and go Damar Hamlin. So I'm all Bills this weekend. I'm that girl that's like, I will literally just change teams to and make be like the runaway bride, Oh, go Bills, Mafia Nation.
All right, thank you, Barbara. All right,
Bills.
Barbara, next question. What do you like best about the Jersey Shore? And you kind of touched on this before, but maybe, the top 3 points.
The freedom, the ease, just the lifestyle. It's a whole, you're transported back to the 1970s. Nobody cares about what car you drive. Yeah, I don't know. I love that. I love the lifestyle of the friendships. People are in a good mood. It's the best. It's the best. To the bay, to the ocean, to town, exercising. It's just, I think I'm going to live longer because I live down there in the summers.
Now, when you come in Philadelphia to visit, what's your feeling when you go to that place?
Philly? Yeah. I'm
Kind of
in
the opposite of where you're at, right?
Well, I'm in Princeton, which is central to New York and
Oh, okay.
Philly. So I'll meet friends in Philly for dinner. I love it. But I'm a New Yorker girl. Like that's my city, not Philly, but.
Well, New York's got a lot of cool stuff too. And you have to be, with being in media for New York, playing, the media, Good Day New York and Today Show, all that stuff. So thank you, Barbara. All right, Barbara. So next question is about how do you become a popular television personality? If you're giving instructions for someone right out the gate.
Number one, hire a media trainer. Number two, study people that you like. And number three, be yourself. Everybody else is taken, right? That's a great quote. But also, I had heard from this Dr. Gary Brecka from 10X Health, and he had spoken at an event, and he was like, you really want to connect with your audience, you want to connect with people, be authentic. It is one of the highest vibrations that you can give out, to connect and have relationships with other people. Be yourself. And I was like, that has never left me. So if you really want to do well on TV, be yourself. But if you do want to get on TV or you get some random booking, the key that I think where people make mistakes is, like when you're talking, you're animated, but when you're in TV, you've got to be more animated. But it doesn't, otherwise you come off flat, even though you think you're enthusiastic and smiling and all that. You have to like jack it up a little bit. So that's what I've learned. Sometimes I see myself and I'm like, why do I look like I'm taking a nap up there? I think I'm animated, but TV is like, you got to amplify it a little bit. So, and hire a media trainer. I'll DM me if you want a media trainer. I'll send you to mine. I'll send you right to the front of the line.
Thank you, Barbara. I did Steve Harrison's publicity training over 2 years ago. I don't know if you know Steve Harrison. He's a Philly guy, but he's one of the top PR guys, but he does it differently. He has a PR national summit, and all these media people come.
Oh, wow.
So, but yeah, there was a lot of producers, but yeah, definitely that's really cool space that you're in, Barbara. And we're doing a Clubhouse event this Friday if you want to join us on exactly that, on TV. So Mike Alden. And
I gotta get you over to the Twitter.
Huh?
The Twitter spaces are huge. 3,000 people last night in a room.
Oh yeah. This is a room you opened up?
With Grant and Nelson and Jonathan Bing. Huge.
That's amazing.
800 is like our smallest. So continue.
Okay. Well, yeah,
Now you're coming over to Twitter.
I don't have the same style as them though, so but I would definitely open one with you. And I have, like I said, a big following. So it's just a matter of what I saw so far though, Barbara, it doesn't look like they have the same tools as Clubhouse. Like
their technology,
archaic.
considering it's Elon Musk, their technology is not where Clubhouse is, but Clubhouse has focused strictly on drop-in audio. So yeah.
Thank you, Barbara. So Barbara, next question. Who are some of the celebrities you have worked with? If you want to just drop a few names.
Just more of like, I don't think I've worked. If I worked them, I've definitely worked around them.
I saw, was that you with Harry Connick Jr.? This was like a long time ago. I watched.
No, it was Andy Grammer. Is that who you're thinking of? Like,
yeah, maybe.
I mean, I've definitely.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Who are you thinking? I'm like, I have so many celebrities that I've around, or I've been around, or I've done events with, or I've been at events, or I don't even know where to begin. I'm so not a celebrity person at all. Like, I don't even like, I find it like such a circus. I'm like, are you, because when you meet them, everyone's just a person,
Yeah. Well, you definitely met a lot on Clubhouse. I mean, you were there when the celebrities were actually, it was the hub back in the early 2021.
But now they're,
What helped you to survive cancer? If you could boil it down to maybe a minute or less.
I had the best attitude of like, I can't change my diagnosis, but I can change how I can manage my attitude. I walked every single day. I do not bring me a casserole. No one's going to eat it. And if you want to come over and you want to help me, I walk twice a day. So I'd walk after the kids would get dropped off at like 8:30. Somebody would come over. We would go for this loop. I would go to Jam and Crepes. They had almond milk lattes before everyone else. Go to Jam and Crepes, get my almond milk latte, walk through Princeton University, and then walk back home. And I would do that loop twice a day. I was tracking 10,000 steps a day during my treatments. Even on my worst chemo days. Now, not on my worst chemo days. I did not walk on those days, but even on when I didn't feel well, chemo, like I can feel the chemo as I tell this story. it was the only time I felt normal when I was moving and walking, sitting around like festering in the poison. Just sitting on that couch.
What
Anyway,
was that like, by the way? Can you describe chemo? Is it kind of like a high, or is it?
you sit there. I didn't get a port. Like a lot of people get a port so they can easily put the chemo in, and I didn't want the scar. I was getting a divorce. So I was like, I got enough scars from this intestine removing. So I refused a port. So they had to do it through my arms. Oh my God, I looked like a heroin addict. And you just sit there and they drip, and you get this metal taste in your mouth, and you have neuropathy in your hands. And I used to get these like in my thighs, just this almost like pins and needles in my thighs. And and you just can't taste it. I was in the supermarket this morning before we met. And I was in the bars, like the whatever protein bars. And somebody had given me these Kind bars during my chemo, and I cannot eat them. I cannot buy them. I cannot eat them. I can't even see them without thinking chemo. I cannot. And they taste like chemo to me because I would eat them when I was in chemo. There's these breadsticks in this bread basket from the Lowe's Regency where I would stay when I would get my infusion. I see that. I'm like, chemo. I have chemo food that I can't never look at again. Don't like to think about it. Don't like to see them in the supermarket. So
Did you get hallucinative though? Like, do you see stuff that's not there?
no, I didn't have any of that.
Oh, okay.
That's
It's just it's like a horrible feeling. That's all. Okay.
Horrible.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate you answering that question, Barbara. So that's a very important question for me because I actually studied, I wrote a book on survival, my last book, which I'll mention later on. The Survival of the Richest is a 500-page book, but the first part was about survival. I studied some of the biggest survival stories in history and the biggest survivors today. And you know what the conclusion was? Exactly what you just said. Attitude. Attitude is king. Most of the big survivalists, they say attitude gets you anywhere, like SEAL team people,
100% attitude and effort. I'm like, I walked. I believed I was, I played an active role in my recovery. Yeah, I had all right, fuck it if they survived.
All right, thank you, Barbara. Barbara, why is it important to help others who might not be as fortunate as us, especially physically and mentally? Maybe a minute or two.
I think that's what we're supposed to do in this world is live in service of others. I met Oprah years ago and I asked her, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who aspired for your level of success? And she said, very succinct, you can't aspire for anyone's level of success. Success is a byproduct of living in service of others. Find your gifts, use your gifts, and use it to help others. And you want to live the good life, you want to live the good life, then help as many people live the good life with you. Help as many damn people. And the byproduct is you're going to thrive. You're going to experience great prosperity, opportunity, abundance. It's a game changer.
So I didn't know you met Oprah. That's incredible.
It's a stretch that I don't know how to say it. I was at Oprah's show. Let me break it down. I was at an Oprah show. She had an after show. And we got to ask her questions. I asked her a question. Like going into all that is like a waste of time. So I was like, well, I met Oprah, but in full disclosure, it's not like we sat and broke bread together. I'll have to work on that part of the story.
No, I like it. I like it. You did meet Oprah. So what tips do you have for oh, by the way, before I get to the next question, I just want to say, so, both of us having brothers that are special, I want to say your mission, I'm aligned with your mission. I have other allies as well. So I'd love to bring them on board. And if there's anything I can do to help you with that, because that's one of my passions too. Like I asked you this question for a reason, because people like our brothers, there's a lot of people out there, a lot of families. It's not just us. When you have someone like that, it affects the whole family. It affects the life of every member of that family. Because you can't see life the same anymore. Because when you look at those folks, you think you have problems, and you look at them and they're so happy. And it makes you wonder what the hell's wrong, what's wrong with us, So I just want to put that out there for you, Barbara.
Well, I want to share this, that in Buddhism, they say that people like our brothers sacrificed this lifetime because they're actually the higher being. They sacrificed this lifetime to help others around them. And there's a lot in that.
I'll go one step further, and this is kind of crazy, but so one of my best friends died when I was 18. He was my cousin, killed himself.
Oh,
And I got to say, some people that might be true would take their whole lives, because it changed my whole life. Like it created a new me, and I know I'm not alone. So I think that's what you just said. I mean, I've always thought this, but it's interesting to hear that philosophy. I think that could be true on so many levels.
and I am so sorry for your loss. That's just, it like breaks my heart, but it's true. It does change your perspective on everything for sure.
Thank you, Barbara. Barbara, so what tips do you have for soon-to-be single parents on how to financially prepare for divorce? This is a finance thing, so I had to tie that in. Like, so folks that might potentially be divorced,
If
then
it is not an income producing asset, sell it. If it is not producing income, you sell it. And I just learned this. I tried to teach my kids this because they lost their bike this summer at the beach, and they're like, "Oh, I got to go buy a new bike." And I was like, you know what? You need to keep better track of your bikes. I know it sounds funny, but this is just track with me, and there's no point in telling the story.
I'm
Other
running
than
with you.
what I said to them, I was like, how about if I didn't have to spend $700 buying you a new bike? And instead I took that $700 and I bought you a vending machine. Which one of those two things is going to be producing money? And they're like, vending machine. I'm like, oh, I can't buy is that bike going to make you any money unless you can Uber it or sell it or rent it or whatever. So anybody that's going in a divorce, about ready to be single, and divide your entire estate in half. If it is not an income producing asset, you need to sell it. Your Gucci bags are not going to make you happy. You're not winning a popularity contest. Cut the crap, buy things, invest in income producing assets, not depreciating assets, not anything. And if you do, and Botox, that's the one thing I'm like, just do your Botox and buy income producing. That's it. I'm done. Okay.
Barbara, you're funny. But that's words of wisdom right there. And I appreciate you, Barbara. You've been through it, so you know. Well, thank you, Barbara. So why did you decide to buy a jet? Now, let me preface this question. So we found out on Clubhouse that night, and Clubhouse still has value, like Barbara Majeski comes in my room at 12 o'clock at night after I have 2,500 people in a room for Bradley and some other billionaires. And we start having a conversation. I found out she owns a jet, and she owned it with Brian Benstock. And I'm like, what? Because we were talking about Grant's jet. And so what's your reason for buying the jet? Why did you decide to do that?
I invested in a jet, and
I love that. Better word.
yes, it's an income producing asset. When I'm not using it, somebody else is. I also think it's where the puck is going, into private aviation. I'm fascinated by it. I think commercial aviation has become so obnoxious. TSA, the COVID, labor shortages, pilot shortages, strikes, infrastructure down, like they just had with Southwest, where their whole.
How about yesterday? They shut the whole grid got shut down. First time ever.
Private aviation to me is just a more strategic way to use your time. Time is your most valuable commodity, and it blows my mind. So it's just a Honda jet, a small 5-seater Honda jet can get you from A to B. This is not a fancy jet. This isn't a Lear jet. This isn't like all that. It's like, get on board. There's some snacky packies over there, but it's a Honda. We all know Honda is like the best practical car. Where it's also the most practical jet. And I just feel like, why are executives still being flown on commercial planes? They have to spend 4 hours with just travel. They lose a half day of productivity at least every travel day. You lose the day to productivity. Then you have to put them up in hotels. You got to pay for 3 extra meals. Like, you start doing the math. How about you pop them on my jet? Come here, get them on the Honda. We're going to go from New York to Boston. They're going to get on there. They're going to do their work. The jet's going to take them back home. They're not going to be sitting in an airport, having Bloody Marys, wasting the day. They're going to be in and out and back home. It is a productivity saver. And how about when those executives that are managing hundreds of people are stranded at an airport or stranded in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and they can't get on a plane? I feel that smart private aviation, more executives need to be, and because the perception of it is not up to date with the realities of it. The perception is like, oh my God, that's so, it's an epic. I put 4 executives on a Honda. And I don't have to, that is smart business. The productivity and the time, it is smart business. I was like, I'm in. The Honda sounds great. Let's do it, Ben Stock. So we opened up an LLC together, B&B Aviation, and I use it here and there. I don't use it all the time. I don't think, for me, it's more of an income producing asset. I wouldn't say, listen, I don't know that it's going to make me, wealthy, but I love this space. I'm a little obsessed with private aviation.
Yeah, but it's also a great resume builder and a great talking point. We're talking about it right now because it's super unique, right? And the
truth is, I think it's just the perception of it is not like I said, the perception is off. Fine. It sounds like, oh my God, it is expensive, but is it expensive if you have to spend $2,500 an hour in flight time, yet you fly 4 executives from New York to Chicago and they leave 8 a.m. and they're home 8 p.m. and they're able to work all damn day? They're in that office because they land at a private airport and they just get picked up and it's just zoom, zoom, zoom. So I mean, again, it's like colon cancer, and it's the perception. Colon cancer is your old man's disease anymore. It looks like this. This is what colon cancer, this is what it looks like. And private aviation isn't that far removed from mainstream usage if you understand it a little bit more and you start doing the math and have a little more respect for your time. And so anyway, I could go off on it. But I know we're out of time.
We'll break it down. Like what's the financial, if you can break that down, like what kind of money could you make from something? And you don't have to use your own numbers, but just because I had a discussion with Fred Penny, the minimum for a jet is 10 million these days. Is that right?
No, I don't know.
No?
The jet is not 10 million. But I wouldn't have those numbers. I'm not your person for numbers. For me, I was like, I put my money where my mouth is and I let things go. I'm not going to sit there and watch it every single month. Some months are better than other months, and we'll see how it goes. But I also do like using it here and there for myself. But anyway, I got to put a pin in it because I have another call coming in. So,
okay, so Barbara, let's get into our main questions here, which are temple questions. I've asked them to everyone on here, from Les Brown to Brett Farr. Can one book change the world? We're going to do about 10 seconds each question. Go ahead. Can one book change the world?
One story can change your life. I think when you identify with somebody, I read memoirs all the time, and the book about Michael Orr is one of my favorite books, and wasn't the most well-written book or even spoke about. He was in The Blind Side. Everybody read The Blind Side. I read Michael Orr's story, and I think it left his strongest impact on me because he said something very strong in there, that he knew he was loved, even though, and he wanted to tell the story because it felt that his mother's love was not something were too Hollywood for him. And he had to tell a story. I read it twice.
That's incredible. So Barbara, what role has networking played in your life? Maybe 10 seconds.
Yeah. Power of proximity. It's not who you know, it's who knows you.
Thank you, Barbara. And as an extension of that, is mentoring important? And who are some of your mentors?
I work with Sharon Lechter right now. She's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and huge, because when they believe in you, it just amplifies your belief in yourself.
That's incredible. Barbara, she's my mentor, and I have a summit, mastermind in Arizona. She's going to be one of the main people with Mark Victor Hansen.
I love her.
It's incredible. All right. So Barbara, what are your favorite financial books? Maybe 1 or 2.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I think that one spoke to me so much. I love that.
Thank you, Barbara. And do we need money to survive?
Yes, a lot of it.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. And it's not so much about the material things in your life, it's about the choices that you get afforded for your family, for you, and living life on your terms. So yes, you need money and you need a lot of it, and you need to learn how to do it.
Yeah, and that leads to the next question. Is finance necessary for everyone? Now, finance, the science of money and wealth and all that stuff. Is that
We're
necessary?
not taught how to make money in school, and your teachers have no business teaching it unless they've made great wealth. You have to learn about generational wealth building outside the classroom.
You don't think that finance, the subject, is helpful at all? Learning about money?
No, I think it's very important, but you've got to learn it from the right people.
Absolutely. How important is having a purpose in business, and what is your purpose?
Absolutely, you need a purpose. Otherwise, when things go wrong, you're going to be like, why am I doing this? When you are aligned with your why, you can persevere through adversity. And when you have no idea why you're doing something, and then when things go sideways, you're going to, head for the exit door.
Thank you, Barbara. Two more questions left. What would you like to accomplish in the next 10 years or so, and why?
I'm looking to build a real estate portfolio of over $100 million. And I would like to continue to do advocacy for children and adults with special needs, continue to write books, and really build out my More Life Collective, which is a collective of online challenges, retreats, and resets to help people move from information to transformation through taking action. So I expect that to be a global brand filled with multiple collaborations, multiple niches, have an app, and just a giant community that expands across the globe.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Barbara. Last question. What do you want to leave as your legacy to this world?
I would love to leave a legacy of giving back, giving that voice to the most vulnerable members of society, and to be known for having a wicked sense of humor.
Thank you, Barbara. And I want to conclude now. I want to thank you for being here, Barbara. Honored to have you here. Can't wait to have you on the Clubhouse stage, folks. If you haven't already, mark it in your calendar. It's February 3rd, 2023, in case you're watching this into the future. 7 to 9 p.m. Barbara will be there. It's Eastern time. So, Barbara, before we conclude, I'd like to leave the floor to you. If there's anything you'd like to talk about, the floor is yours, Barbara.
Well, I just
Anything at
want to
all.
thank you. Yeah, no, I so appreciate this opportunity to connect with you, share stories. We have a lot in common, and you can still be friends with me if you're an Eagles fan.
Yeah, I'm only fans when they win, by the way.
That's fair.
So Barbara, thank you so much. We're going to find out more information about you, your website, social media.
Yep, BarbaraMajeski.com, Instagram, Barbara Majeski, TikTok, Barbara Majeski, and on Twitter, it's at The Majeski.
The Majeski. Okay, great. Thank you, Barbara. Appreciate you. Looking forward to seeing you in the Clubhouse stage very soon. And we're going to conclude out now, Barbara. If you can hold on just a moment. I want to thank everyone for being here. Folks, definitely Dr. Anthony Criney, fourth here, also known as Dr. Finance. If you want to find out more information about this podcast, drfinance.info. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe, and also share it out as well so we can build up the community as well. Folks, we're going to blast this out to YouTube and all the 20 plus major podcast directories. If you want to learn more about finance, I have my finance books here. The Necessity of Finance was my first book, The Most Important Lessons in Economics and Finance. And finally, my last book, The Survival of the Richest. Check them out, folks. Check Barbara's stuff out, and we'll see you on the next episode very soon. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.